So I would have to say we have a lot of amazing female leaders in this community. Am I right? Can we give a round of applause for that? That's awesome. Now, if you guys are people that enjoy social media, whether you tweet or check in on Facebook or just want to take pictures and let people know that you're here, use hashtag SGWomen. That's what's internationally we're using that. And at Startup Grind ICT is our Twitter handle, so please do so. And now, without further ado, I'm going to bring up our moderator this month. You actually all know her. She's was our moderator for all of 2017. She's an amazing individual in this community, and she's also a very phenomenal female leader. So let me introduce Christina.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to be back in the chair. Yes. We are so pleased to be able to have two very strong women surrounded by women-owned businesses, women-focused businesses, and just amazing talent right here in our audience. To you guys who are here, thank you for your support and showing up. You might learn some things tonight and be of even better support to the ecosystem. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our female entrepreneurs. Tonight we have Jenny Dawn Sellers, Jennifer McDonald. Give her a hand.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Well, look at her strut and stroll. That's right. And then we also have joining us, hold on. Because when we were doing our prep, she's a little nervous. So I'm gonna walk with her. Come on up. Tell them your name.
Sudha, Tokala.
Sudha, Tokala. You guys, welcome, Sudha. Now, for both of these, Jennifer has been here before. Sudha has been watching and really kind of embracing what we're doing with Startup Grind. But we are a friendly audience, aren't we? Can you all smile at them? Yes. We are a friendly audience. We are an audience full of dreamers, makers, doers, definers ourselves. And we're just looking for inspiration tonight. Is that okay? All right. Again, this is Female Founders Month, but it's also National Women's History Month. The theme for National Women's History is Nevertheless, She Persisted. Isn't that strong? We're going to hear about persistence tonight. We're going to hear about inspiration tonight, and we are all going to be moved. So with that being said, climb up in my chair. All right, let's begin. Now, typically, when we do Startup Grind, we are focusing on entrepreneurs who have been very successful for a very long time. And yet, Jennifer McDonald is with us. Jennifer is a relative newbie on the scene, but when you hear her story, you will see why she is up here. Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about how long you have been in Wichita, first of all?
Absolutely. So before I do that, I just want to say I'm extremely humbled and honored to be here tonight. As Christina said, I'm very new in my entrepreneurship journey, so it is truly a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I grew up in Columbus, Nebraska, and have been in Wichita for 11 years with my family.
Very good. How did you come to Wichita?
So my husband is a structural analysis engineer, currently working with Airbus, and when he was going to school, he knew he wanted to be in aviation aerospace, and Wichita was the place to be. So I came alongside him, and I was very new in my human resources and recruiting career, but was able to find a great job. And when I first landed here, I was with Koch Industries for several years.
Very, very good. So typical. Our aviation theme, our aviation interests brought your family here. The opportunities, worked with big companies. Koch was among those in your resume, and you call Wichita home. Does it feel like home?
It definitely feels like home. We came here not knowing a soul. It was my husband, myself, and my son at the time was 15 months old. So we knew that we had to engage in the community to meet people. So we found a great church and just started networking within our employers, and it soon became home.
Very, very good. Sudha, how did you become acquainted with Wichita, and how did you make Wichita home?
We actually came to this country in 1992 with a suitcase and $5,000 in our pocket. And we're definitely living the American dream, and thank you for having me here. I'm, very nervous. Because I don't call myself an entrepreneur, but more of a go-getter. And I'm definitely a go-getter. And, but we came with, my husband had a medical degree and I had a pharmacy degree, and I stress on education. And it's been 26 years. We have had our ups and downs, but we're very happy, content. Kids are well settled.
Yeah.
I'm an empty nester, and I decided I've got to do something, and that's why we're here. But he went to Harvard to do his residency, and I did a master's and a PhD at KU. And then we decided, since we came here as students to Kansas, that after his residency in Harvard, we'll go ahead and come back to Kansas. And so we moved here just before 9/11, and we've been here since then.
That is very interesting. Did you all hear KU? I didn't hear any.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's wonderful. All right. Now, as I asked the question about why Wichita, how you all came here, you all shared a little bit about your careers, your studies, just very briefly, but entrepreneurship and business ownership, it didn't necessarily come up in that particular question. Were you all introduced to entrepreneurship or business ownership in your younger years, or where did it come about, the spark come about for you all?
So for me, I really wasn't exposed to entrepreneurship in Nebraska, but once I got settled in my HR career, I developed this passion for wine.
Wine. Were those people driving you a little crazy?
And I actually got inspired by a company that I worked for, a family-owned business, the Lane Company. I was within human resources for a couple years with them, and it's a family-owned business, very successful, and it was pretty inspiring. I went back to school and got a master's degree in agribusiness. Part of my plan is to eventually plant a vineyard. That's a ways down the road. But agribusiness made sense. K-State has a wonderful viticulture, horticulture program. It just was the right place for me to get my studies. And through that, I was able to put together a business plan to start Jenny Dawn Cellars.
That's interesting. I said that in jest about HR folks driving her crazy. She was looking in the audience actually at two folks who we had the pleasure of being able to have at a previous Startup Grind, the Langs. How are you doing, Jeff? Good to have you here. So again, the passion for wine led to a study of wine that led to a business around wine. Sudha, for you, where did business ownership and entrepreneurship come up in your journey?
So we started working, and I worked as a research scientist for a couple of years, then worked as a pharmacist for a couple of years. Was not too happy doing that, raising two kids. And my husband was also working odd hours, and one day, I swear, I got up in the middle of the night, and I said, I'm going to quit pharmacy. My husband said, what are you going to do? I said, real estate. He said, really? I said, yeah, and then I went back to sleep, and then the next day, I swear, I went and put in my resignation. Wow. And we had the money. It was just, I felt like we were just chasing it and not really being happy about it. And we had two kids that were 11 and 12 that really needed me. And I really was interested in business and real estate. Or a business. So I thought, okay, I'm going to open a coffee shop. Failed miserably, but I opened a coffee shop with a gelato store. I don't know if anybody knows, it was called Chill Gelato in the waterfront. And it was 2007 and 8, economy was booming. I opened it. I called it the $20 business because at the end of the day, I had so many $20 bills. It's a chore counting them. But next year, the economy went down and everything just tanked. I was like, oh my God, I stuck to my pharmacy job. What am I doing? And instead of just staying through the thick and thin of it because you're just starting out, you don't know, it's first time you're doing it, I seriously thought the economy's never going to come back up like everybody else. And I decided just to take my losses and sell it. And that was my first well-learned lesson that if you're going to get into something, you've got to make sure that you're going to stick through it in the good times and the bad times, because the economy is not going to support you all the time. And so the next time when I got into something, I had, and which was hotels. I have 2 successful hotels, one in the airport, both of them are in the airport, the Hampton Inn in the airport and the Spring Hill. But I had my plan, and I knew that even in the downturn or the upturn, it was planned out well ahead of time. If there was a downturn, I had plan B, so I didn't have to sell out. If I had stuck to that store and gone through the couple of years that it had the down, it would have been fine, but the person that bought it for me is doing really well, so I'm happy for him.
That's awesome. So again, there was passion or discontent, actually, passion or discontent that led to a decision to launch something that they were unfamiliar with. One took more of a steady kind of business plan, education approach. Another jumped in and was able to learn through the actual interaction of building a company. Lessons learned both ways, absolutely, to then be able to go into another venture of hotels. So to tell us, to go into the hotel industry, what was that decision-making process like? That can be pretty intimidating, especially from where you had been.
It is intimidating, but it was something where you decide that you're going to learn how to develop a piece of land. So you buy a piece of land. I bought a piece of land that was 7 acres by the airport in foreclosure because I really was interested in the land. I come from India, by the way, where land and buildings, which is, when they say real estate, it's real estate. It's real. It's real. It's not like the stock market. So when I bought that, I was like, I'm going to put a hotel over here, But how do you go about that? When you talk, you shouldn't be worried. You shouldn't be scared. You shouldn't be scared about asking questions because it's your hard-earned money. It's his and my hard-earned money that we're going to put to work. And so I'm like calling all these the people that actually give you the flag, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, and they don't really want to talk to you because they want you to come with another guy that's already done it because they don't want to reinvent the wheel. But they don't know Sudha Tokala because Sudha Tokala is pretty persistent. And finally, they're like, okay, fine, we'll give you a flag because there's another flag that's, and then you have to research which flag you want. But it was something that I wanted to go down. It's called going down the rabbit hole. You have to go down the rabbit hole to see what's end of it. And I've gone down many rabbit holes before you find something. But if you don't go down each one, you don't know what's at the end of it. I didn't know that the Hampton would work out. I thought Holiday Inn, I thought, like a Staybridge, because I wasn't thinking big, but I went down that hole, was like, okay, the profits are not that much. I went down the next hole, wasn't that much. Another Hampton Inn that was in the market was going out of business, and I said, well, they're just at a wrong location. Let me try that, go down that rabbit hole. Look at the financial. It's a lot of work, but no money involved in doing the legwork because you're doing it mostly yourself. Mm-hmm. When I went down that rabbit hole, I was like, oh, wow, this is good, so I'm going to do it here. But at the last minute, I decided I'm not going to do it on my 7 acres. I'm going to do it in the airport because the locations. And so we decided to my husband is very nice. He doesn't get involved. He doesn't ask me questions. And when I fail, he's like, how much loss do we have? And I tell him, and he's like, okay. So he knows he can minus it from. So he didn't. And then, so when I got the whole business plan together, I went to him and he said, okay. And then then you have to go to a bank, you have to get a loan, then you have to find a builder to actually build the hotel. But once you do it, it's a really nice feeling. And especially to say I own a hotel in the airport, it's been a feather in my hat, I want to say.
Absolutely.
But it was a lot of work to get there. I just want to say that it involved a lot of steps, yeah.
About how long was that process for you, going through those rabbit holes?
About 4 years.
4 years, 4 years.
The hotel got built in a year. But it took 4 years to figure out which business plan works.
Absolutely.
But at the end of it, you find one, and then, yeah.
And it goes. So again, that persistence, those questions, finding the right people to answer your questions, all of those things is part of the skill set that comes about when you're an entrepreneur. And sometimes those folks who are answering those questions hold the keys to a flag, and other times they hold the keys or answers to resources that you need. Jennifer, can you talk about what your experience was like chasing your rabbit holes and trying to work your way through Wichita's entrepreneurial ecosystem with service partners?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, Sudha, I'm on a 4-year journey too, so I understand. Yes, 4 years. But I was thankful after grad school, I realized that I needed to really get engaged in the Wichita entrepreneurship ecosystem. And one of the first places that I went to was the Urban Professional Group. So I had the pleasure of meeting Jonathan Long, Christina's husband. And he told me about an event called the Crate Campaign, which Christina runs.
My baby.
And so I attended this event. I didn't have a business plan put together. I had an idea. I had firsthand research and a thesis, so I had something. But I went, I learned, I soaked in all this information and walked away with great service partners. So my attorney I met there, my bank I met there. I got connected with Network Kansas and SCORE, who first helped me with my business plan. And I had all these resources that allowed me to apply for launch prep. And my launch prep mentor, Trish Bracestead, is in the audience, and it's part of E to Eat Accelerator, which I'm also a part of, that John is helping me with my capital raise. So it all started with me knowing that I needed some support, finding people in the community that could help. I got a great foundation from Christina, a phenomenal foundation from Launch Prep. I was able to work with Trish, and we finalized my business plan, so we broke it out into phases. So phase 1 was to get product in the market. So anyone who knows anything about winemaking, it takes 6, 9, 12 plus months to make good wine. I did not want to have to eat that timeline, so I found a partner in Napa that was able to source all of the grapes for me, start the winemaking process. I got to come in and work with finished wine and blend the wine to create my final taste. That saved me 9 months. So Trish was able to help me put together that phase 1. We put our wines into market into it's going to be actually 3 timelines. So our first 2 wines, the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, got released in October of last year. We sold 11 cases of each in 3 months. Then our rosé and our white just launched April 16th. And so far we've sold 3 cases of each. We're trending a case a week. And then I will have 2 other wines that will come out in October of this year, the second version of our Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So with Trish's help, I was able to implement and execute phase 1 of my business. We started working on phase 2, which is the first urban winery to hit downtown Wichita. We are going to be located at Union Station. I'm working with Jeff Jones on, so yeah, clap. I'm working with Jeff Jones on the build-out and SPT architecture, and it's been a phenomenal experience. We will open our doors in April of next year. So utilizing all of those service partners, I have been able to really see my dream come to fruition.
That's incredible. And you're celebrating another milestone next week?
Yes. So the second part of all of that was, I should back up and say, we're selling our wines direct to consumer. So we're selling our wines primarily through our website, but we knew that people really want to see, touch, feel, look at the bottle at a wine retailer or liquor store before they make their purchase. So I was able to connect with a distributor Demo Cells in El Dorado. They purchased 60 cases of my wine. The wine is getting delivered on Monday, and we have our first tasting pouring appointment with a liquor store on Friday.
Incredible. That is incredible. So again, for us in this facility tonight, you've heard so far passion, discontent, questions, a behavior change in that they decided to move beyond where they currently were to tap into something that they didn't have experience in, but they asked a lot of questions and they chased some rabbit holes and they accessed their networks and made hotels and an urban winery come to fruition to where they're able to talk about it. That's incredible. And we all have the opportunity to do things that are very incredible if we put the passion behind it and the execution and the follow-through behind it. Just in both of their examples, being able to access all of the amazing resources that we do have in Wichita, that is very real for us here tonight. And for us leaving these types of events and these types of opportunities to go back into our own realities to make dreams possible. So hear that when you're listening to them as well. Now, it's not always great. It's not always easy. There were probably a lot of no's along the way. There's probably, you mentioned some failure as well along the way. Some of those failures might be private, some might be more public. I remember, Jennifer, your first 1 Million Cups presentation. Was anyone there with us when that occurred? Yeah, there was a gentleman in the room who essentially told Jennifer her dream was too big. You know, it's just too big. Why do you have to do all of that? There's those naysayers. Even in preparation for them telling their stories tonight, there was a commenter on a post saying, what real barriers or differences do women have to face compared to men? What are the real barriers? Real or perceived, they do exist. There's gaps that exist. But again, these two are examples that we can progress beyond the barriers, beyond the naysayers, and have incredible stories to share. So with that being said, Sudha, your work didn't stop with the hotels. You've been buying up some things as well. Can you talk a little bit about what new purchases you've been making?
My husband was wishing I don't mention this because he doesn't want to see it in the paper. He's like, too many people ask me what you're doing, and I can't answer that question. Yeah, the city was auctioning off a building downtown, and it was a very historic building. It was once the Eanes department store. It has lots of history. Then it became Macy's, I think. Then it became Dillard's. So some of you might have shopped at one of those stores. Then the city took it over and put 700 small cubicles in there, which I didn't know why, but they spent a whole bunch of money doing that. And then they rented it for 10 years, so they didn't even recoup what they put into it. But then they decided to go somewhere else and pay somebody else money to rent space and leave this building alone. And then they decided to sell it for $100,000. I was just so upset. I don't know why. When I read that in the paper, I was working close by there, and I read it, I saw the building. I went inside, I saw the building. I was upset. And I came home, I said, we're gonna buy that building. He goes, why? I said, I don't know, but I just wanna buy it. It's a good piece of history. If you read about it, I don't know if you have time, but if you ever read about it, it's got lots of history. And it's a beautiful building. If you see old pictures, it's got columns, high ceilings, copper ceilings, but they obviously took it all out. They converted it into office space, so when you walk in, it just looks like they just changed it. So then I heard it was going to go away for $100,000. I was like, no, I want to get this building. And so I went and put my bid in for the auction, and I won. They call me, my stomach sank, like, oh my God, what do you mean I won the bid? I was just trying to raise the price.
Wow.
Seriously. And then it comes in the paper the next day. My husband walks, we bought that building for $700,000? I thought it was going for 100. I said, I wanted to make sure we got the building. So guess what? We got the building. So he said, what do you want to do? I don't know. But you know, one of those things you just don't, some things, it just comes from your gut sometimes. I could have probably got it for 500 because the next highest bid after me was 490, but I didn't know that. All I knew was I wanted that building. So basically, after I bought the building, I bought a couple of more buildings, and then I bought a couple more. So now I'm up to 6 buildings. But I want to start an educational institution downstairs in downtown. I haven't figured out which institutions yet. Again, it's a rabbit hole. I'm going down many rabbit holes. But you can be sure Sudha Tokala will get it done. I can guarantee you that. But what it will be, how many students will it be, how much faculty will be there, how much student housing will be there. I have a plan. It changes all the time. I wish I could tell you guys what the plan is. And we're still in the design stage. We haven't got to architects or engineers or anywhere. It's all in my head. And I have Stratton, who's working with me over there. He's a great asset. And so we just started an office. He's like, my husband's like, you have an office now? I'm like, yeah, I have an office now. So this is legit.
That's right.
But it's been fun. I just go with my gut. I'm very humble. I treat people like the way I want to be treated. I am upfront. I tell them exactly what I'm trying to do. There's no hiding it, but I just don't know what's good. It could be medical school. It could be nursing school. It could be dental school. It could be engineering. But all I know is I want my kids to not want to go to the East Coast. Both my kids are in the East Coast doing college. We're empty nesters, as I said. I don't want my grandkids or any kids that are here going forward to think that they have to go to the East Coast to live that urban lifestyle. And if I just got one building, it wouldn't have worked out because then I'm just doing one building. And if I do that, then every other property goes up in values. It's chicken or the egg kind of thing. So I had to get everything. So I have about 750,000 square feet downtown. And I plan on doing something with it.
I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that because sometimes it seems like we have to wait until our idea is perfect before we act on it or before we talk about it. But to be able to have the means and the passion to want to, again, make sure that this is a place where your family wants to be able to invest in that. Jennifer, same thing. You could have picked any building in town. You picked Union Station. I mean, that's not anything that's little. These are big things that you all are breaking down. The pathway might not be clear, but it's real. And I appreciate you saying that. So again, if you're holding something in the audience, it might not be a big downtown building, but it might be something that is so fulfilling for you in ways that will impact your family. That matters. It all plays well. And as we are celebrating in Wichita, the uplift and the revitalization of downtown Wichita, it's not just the wonderful men who are doing all of the work. There's women behind that movement as well, and we need to know that. We really need to know that. It's a collective effort, and we should take a lot of pride in that as well. Representation does matter, so thank you for helping to share this portion of your story as well. So I'm winding down on my portion of the questions before we open it up to theirs, but you all mentioned that both of you all have kids and careers and husbands and self. How do you all balance between all of those factors?
I know for me, I realize that my life will never be completely in balance. My life revolves around seasons. So when I was in grad school, I had to really, really focus on my studies. And every Saturday, my kids know I had managerial accounting and all these other statistics courses that I was going to do. And they were okay with that. But I do take time to go on field trips. So I'm excited to take my son on a field trip. On Tuesday, we're going to Junction City to a park there, and it's going to be all outdoor adventures. My husband is one of the most supporting individuals on earth. He sees how much this business just lights me up and brings me joy and fulfillment that he just kind of lets me run. He just lets me do me, and I am probably a better wife and a mother because of that. And then my kids, it's been fun to see their excitement in my business as well. So we purchased a half acre of land near 13th or 14th and Estelle over a year ago, and that's going to be our urban orchard. My husband and my son have been working diligently on it for that time, And we're planting fruit trees, and next fall we'll plant some grapevines, and they're 100% kind of managing that process. So they're involved. And then in January, I got to take my daughter out to California and visit the wine foundry, and she got to help come up with the color. So she named the rosé color rose gold. She's like, Mom, that's a rose gold color. It's like, yes, it is, Emma. You're right. It's rose gold. So she is excited about the process as well. And so when you can create a business that your family is excited about, that they own a piece of, it's not like you're working. It's, you know, it's something that the whole family gets to be a part of. But one of the things that I learned recently is the importance of self-care. So moving here to Kansas, I have really bad seasonal allergies, but they're all year round. So they're no longer seasonal, they're all year. And I got really sick in February and March, and I kind of had to take a time out. Brandy is shaking her head because I see Brandy almost every day at E2E, and I was so sick, but I wasn't taking any time off, and I was just powering through it. But I finally paused and took some time off and got well, and then my brain came back. Like all these things that were such a struggle were no longer a struggle because I was healthy, I was well, I could think. So I think as women, as moms, as wives, we are, you know, tending to our families, and sometimes we have to put ourselves last. But I realized after being sick for a solid 2 months that I do have to take time for myself. And when I'm tired, I do need to rest. And taking time off and vacations are important so that you can be the best you to give back to the other people, important people in your family.
That's wonderful. Sudha, would you like to add?
So we've been married 26 years. I don't know, it's a balance. My daughter asked me, what are you always thinking? I'm like, I'm always thinking. And it's a process when you do something on your own and you're creating something that has not been done before, or you're trying to do something new. It's always thinking. So even though you're in the family, the kids are there, the husband's there, everything is, you're still thinking. So you've got to balance that with something. So you can't try to be a perfectionist in everything. So I don't separate my laundry when I wash it. I don't, you know, I reserve my brain power for my family and my entrepreneur, whatever I'm thinking of at that moment. You know, it changes pretty quickly. Sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe there's something happening in Dubai that I need to look into, or maybe there's something happening in London that I need to look into. It's just all the time constant. It's just everybody has a different capacity to do how much they can do. So if they have a passion to do entrepreneurial some work, or then they should balance that with giving up something and not worry about giving that up. It's okay. My daughter says, Mom, you have never taken us to a doctor. I'm like, your dad's a doctor. If something happens, he would take care of you. You know, but I did make it to their class meetings, and they're good kids. They've turned out well. So it's definitely a balance. So you've got to learn to be, and the grass is never greener on the other side. That's very important in most relationships to know. If he's giving up something, I should give up something and not nitpick on what's happening in the home life. And I'm pretty content, and I make sure that he is happy. I don't bother him. We get a tax audit, I deal with it. I don't tell him after the fact, hey, this happened. He's like, okay, this happened. So because he lets me do what I want to, I do let them. So it's a balance between wife and husband, and everything is different for each couple. It works for us. It might not work for somebody else. You know, the husband might be very controlling, but you just have to learn. If you're already in that relationship, you just have to learn to work around it and make sure that you're doing what you want to do. Then you have to let the other person give that room in that relationship to make sure that that you give them that room as well, and not say, hey, your shirt is not ironed. Well, it's your job to iron it. I didn't iron it. I love the way you look today. Just it's so as long as you're doing what you want to do and you're happy, then you just let the other person do what they're happy. And so it's worked out for us. And as I said, but our biggest asset is not the money, the buildings, or whatever. It's our 2 kids.
Yeah.
They're really, really down to earth. They're the most humble kids you would ever meet, and I'm really proud of them.
That's wonderful. And final word, bottom line, for people to leave this place tonight and be inspired by you, what is the message you want to give them right now? Sum it all up.
If you have a dream plus the ability to execute a plan, you will be unstoppable. Let no one tell you that you can't achieve that goal, but you do have to have a plan. You have to be good at, follow through and execution, but don't give up on your dream. Put a plan in place and you'll make it.
Wonderful.
If I had to tell you guys something, I'd say don't think, just do it.
Oh my gosh.
Too much thinking can get you into trouble sometimes, because you overthink it, then you throw an idea away before you even start it. When I say do it, I don't mean put money behind it, do it. I mean just research it, Google. Oh my God, I Googled so many things. Without Google, I probably couldn't be an entrepreneur, I think. And if you Google, you find everything. You just go down that I use this rabbit hole, but so many things. I'm like looking at hotels in Dallas. I look at something else. But you never know what falls into place, what makes sense. You'll know at that right moment. And you don't need to spend resources. It could be on your off time in the evenings. You're gonna shop, you're gonna do something, but suddenly you have this idea, I want to open a flower shop, or how do you do that? Where do you get the flowers from? How do you Google it? Wholesale flowers, do you buy them? Where do you buy them? Can I open a flower? Everything has a markup. Everybody makes money. Every business makes money, but it's what business you like. What business you like that's gonna make money, you have to research it before you get there. And most of the time, there's no money involved in any of these tasks. I get like 10 ideas in my brain a day, but most of them don't go anywhere. But you'll end up with one that you really are passionate with, and you've gone down that. And lives are so long. Sometimes people say life is short, but it's really not. You have a lot of time, downtime, that you either are doing something that you could be just looking in the space and thinking, okay, I want to do this. Then you pick up your phone, Google it, and see where it goes. And then next day, and the next day, and the next day. It's not a one-day thing. And it's okay even if you start like I started when I was 45. It's okay. You can start whenever.
That's beautiful.
You guys are content and happy to start that. You'll be fine.
That's right. And one thing you should definitely start is to look around, even just this room. There's an incredible amount of wealth, knowledge, and resources, again, just around us. One thing I overlooked was the power of being a woman. For too long, I was Christina, but tonight I'm seeing Stacy out there with Ceiling Breakers, and all of the attention that has been placed, again, just recently, more so recently, on the power and the wonder of being a woman, and what will happen to Wichita if the women in our community would network and feel connected. No one should feel alone in this community, no matter male, female. But what an amazing city when we connect even more strongly. So I appreciate Startup Grind for just reminding us and the power of being strong, influential women, and to pick up that next one and bring them along as well. And again, for the guys who are hanging with us, thanks for being part of this network as well. We all matter, and our city is gonna be better when we connect in this regard as well. So that is enough from me. I'm gonna kick it out to you, and we will hear from your wonderful questions. But before we do, let's give our wonderful women a hand.
So for those of you that were here last month, we used a thing called Slido. So if you go to slido.com and then you use the code SGICT, and that's where you can submit your question, and then we'll get it up on the screen. We already had one come in. So the question is, how has your entrepreneurial drive affected your relationship with your husband? And was there a point of doubt on his part?
I'll start that one. So my husband is an engineer, so he is highly risk adverse, right? So I had to show data, analysis, I had to show my plan, and eventually he got there. And I think because I started this 4 years ago and I was able to make incremental progress each year, he's like, okay, she can do it. But it took me doing to show him. I had to stop talking and just start doing and kind of prove to him that this was something that could be successful. But there was a lot of worry, there was a lot of doubt, but over time it got better.
My husband still doubts everything I do. But he trusts me in the end. I mean, doubt is more his worry that if she doesn't succeed in what she's doing, will she be hurt? Will her feelings get hurt? How is she gonna? He's not worried about the money part of it. But other than that, once in a while, I'll bounce ideas off of him. But as long as I am cautious and I have plan B and plan C, he's okay. And I always do have a plan B and plan C if something doesn't happen. So we discuss it a little bit, but most of the time he's like, everything go well? I'm like, yeah, everything go well. Yes, everything went well. And that was wrap up and okay, let's go do dinner. That's how our days go. But again, we've been married 26 years, so we do trust each other completely. We're very compatible. We adjust well. So it's just different, as I said, for everybody.
So next question, what has been your greatest point of validation?
I think for me, the greatest point of validation has just been the wine sales. So I knew my concept was going to be a little bit different than a lot of Kansas farm wineries. So I am sourcing 100%. All of my grapes and juice are coming from California and Napa. I did research to show that a lot of consumers like California wines. So the validation point came through when I sold so much wine in such a short period of time. So that made me feel good.
Mine would definitely have to be the day I opened Chill Gelato. And my husband walks up and goes, "You really pulled this off?" He'd never walked into that building before, but it was beautiful when it was open. And I had actually hired 20 people, and I had run payroll, and I actually did my first day of sales, ran the register. We didn't grow up in this country, so all that is just Greek to me before that. For me to have figured out how to run payroll,
that was a big deal for me too. Yeah.
That's like, oh my God, I can do this. Let's think bigger. But it's nice to open any business and just be able to do that and learn that. It's not rocket science. Nothing is rocket science, I tell people. And when I got that day done and I went home, I'm like, yeah, I can do this.
This is a great question. What should men know or do to be more supportive of female entrepreneurship?
That is a really good question. I know for me in the wine industry, when I go to my industry conference, no one looks like me. And so just being inclusive, reaching out, making other women feel welcome, I think that's a big part of it, is just be inclusive and don't be so quick to shut down our ideas.
Yeah, what she said is true. Don't be quick to shut down our ideas, because we definitely are smarter.
Yeah, I was doing good with those value statements, right?
So next question from the crowd. Are there unique barriers for women in the Midwest? Or in
Nebraska,
general, just,
Kansas.
and Christina, you can answer this too as well.
No, don't look at me.
I think there is, because I think in the Midwest, I've been in many meetings, I've been in many offices, especially in the real estate side of it. I see very few women, especially on the commercial side of it. And I always wondered why. And maybe, I don't think I would wonder why if I was on the West Coast or East Coast. You know, or I go to architect firms or engineering firms, I don't hardly ever see women. And yes, I think that's a barrier. I sometimes feel like sometimes I want to send my husband into meetings just because I think he'll get a better deal than if I walk in. But yeah, I think there is barriers in the Midwest that do need to come down. And that would happen if more women get into and not worry about and just take the step forward and just get into those fields that they think are more men dominated, but they really are not smarter than us again. So I think we would do a better job in developing downtown if it was all women doing it, but you know, we got to throw some men into it.
I've been contemplating on this question because there are a lot of barriers to women in the Midwest. I think, you know, just culturally, social norms, you know, how families are structured. There are definitely a lot of barriers. I think it's important that you overcome those barriers, though. And so I think all of us women up here have not let those barriers stop us, which is a blessing.
So as a facilitator, I'm really not supposed to influence the conversation too much, but I would be irresponsible if I did not say, you know, the gap does exist, and it's very well documented. Women do not make the same amount of money as their male counterparts. Women entrepreneurs, we are not owning companies at the same rate as men. We do not hire and employ at the same rate as men. Venture capitalists, the investments in women are not at the same rate as men. I could go on and on and on, and that is just gender. It does not break down or go into subgroups, racial, ethnicity. But again, the gap is real. So piggybacking on that other question, what can men do to be supportive? Don't knock the gap. Don't say it doesn't exist, but really work again to just be inclusive, be aware, open up doors. Allow us to stand on your shoulders, be an advocate, be a voice, don't be a deterrent.
Thank you, Christina.
Christina, you can interject anytime you want. You've earned it. This is going to be the final question because we're right at 7:30 and I want to respect everybody's time. But who is your greatest inspiration, female, male, or just in general? Who is your greatest inspiration?
My parents are my greatest inspiration. So something unique and special about my journey is I grew up in Nebraska, and my parents adopted 4 children, myself included. My parents are white. Three of my siblings are black, and my sister is biracial. So growing up, there were no families that looked like my family in Columbus, Nebraska. And for them to have the strength and the courage to love and care for us as their own, that was huge. I grew up in such a supportive, nurturing environment that I know I would not be who I am today without my parents. My dad just celebrated his 40th service anniversary with his employer. A lot of people don't stay with their employers for 40 years. You know, my parents have been married for 41 years. So my parents are definitely my inspiration, and I love them to death.
I have to say my dad is definitely my inspiration as well. He grew up in a village where there was no running water. He walked 5 miles to go to elementary school, and then he just kept getting further away. But my dad in the 1960s got a PhD in agriculture. He worked for the United Nations, so I had the luxury of traveling with him. I grew up in South Africa and lived there for many years, and I've seen everything. But I've also gone with him. He's taken me, every time he made money somewhere, we would go to India and he'd buy property. So I've gone with him. When probably I was 9 or 10 years, he would hold my hand and show me this rubble and say, we're gonna buy this. And I'm like, why are we buying this? And he did well. He did really well. And over the years, anytime I'm doing something, he never discourages me. He's like, just go for it. Just do it. Just open it. And he will always encourage me. And I'm like, Dad, but I'm buying this. He's like, it's okay. It's real estate. It will always be worth what you buy. Maybe not more, but it will always be worth what you pay for. And it's always been true. And I do truly believe in diversification. The stock market is good. Real estate is better. And cash is the best.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for taking the stage this evening. And also, Christina, thank you so much for coming back and joining us on the stage. So we always enjoy having you.